I work in digital forensics. I make my living finding evidence that people think they've hidden, uncovering digital footprints that reveal the truth about fraud, theft, and betrayal. I've spent 12 years building a career on the principle that the truth always leaves traces, that people who think they're being clever usually forget that everything digital can be recovered, analyzed, and presented as evidence. My husband Marcus knew this about me. He knew that I could trace deleted files, recover hidden communications, and build airtight cases from digital breadcrumbs. He knew that my expertise had helped law enforcement agencies and corporations uncover complex schemes and hold criminals accountable. And yet, somehow, he thought I wouldn't use those same skills when he decided to destroy our marriage. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was in Seattle for a week-long conference on cybersecurity. I was exhausted from a full day of presentations and workshops, looking forward to a quiet evening in my hotel room before another day of networking and learning. The subject line was us, and it came from Marcus's personal email account, not the one he usually used for quick messages or logistics. Rachel, I've already filed for divorce. I took my things from the house. Stay peaceful about this. We both know it's been over for a long time. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I read that message 3 times, sitting on the edge of my hotel bed in Seattle, trying to process what I was seeing. 17 years of marriage, reduced to 4 sentences in an email. No phone call, no conversation, no opportunity for me to respond or ask questions or understand what had led to this moment. Just an email, sent while I was 2,800 miles away from home, with no ability to return immediately, no way to protect myself or my interests. Marcus had timed this perfectly. He knew my travel schedule, knew I was committed to this conference, knew I couldn't just drop everything and fly home. He had waited until I was as far away and as unavailable as possible to blow up our life. I immediately tried calling him. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried our home phone. No answer. I sent a text message. We need to talk. Call me. No response. I tried to sleep, telling myself that maybe this was some kind of breakdown, some kind of temporary crisis that we could work through if I could just get him to talk to me. But I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling of my hotel room, trying to understand how 17 years of shared life could end with such calculated cruelty. The next morning, I did what I always do when something doesn't make sense. I started gathering evidence. I logged into our joint bank accounts from my laptop. Marcus had made several large withdrawals over the past 2 weeks, amounts that totaled nearly $15,000. Money that was now simply gone, with no explanation. I checked our joint credit cards. Marcus had been making purchases I didn't recognize, dinners at restaurants we never went to, charges at a jewelry store, a payment to a moving company. I looked at our home security system app, the cameras we had installed 2 years earlier after a series of break-ins in our neighborhood. The system sent automatic notifications to both our phones whenever there was motion detected, but I realized I hadn't been getting those alerts for the past few days. I logged into the security system's website and discovered that Marcus had changed the settings on my account, removing my access to real-time alerts while maintaining the recording function. I could still view saved footage, but I wouldn't be notified of activity in real time. He had been planning this. Not just the divorce, but specifically this moment, this method. He had been systematically removing my ability to monitor what was happening in our shared home while I was away. But Marcus had made one crucial error. He understood my work well enough to know that I was good at finding hidden evidence, but he didn't understand it well enough to know how to actually hide evidence from someone with my skills. I spent my lunch break that day downloading and analyzing weeks of security footage. What I found was more devastating than I had imagined. Marcus had been bringing another woman to our house for over 2 months. Not occasionally, but regularly, 3 or 4 times a week. She would arrive in the early afternoon and leave late at night. On weekends, she would arrive on Friday evening and not leave until Sunday afternoon. This woman had been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, using my kitchen, wearing what appeared to be my clothes, for months while I was working, traveling, building my career and contributing to our shared life. The footage showed Marcus giving her a tour of the house like she was a prospective buyer. I watched him show her our bedroom, our closets, our home office. I watched her trying on my jewelry, holding up my dresses to see how they fit. I watched Marcus cooking dinner for her using the anniversary dishes we had bought together in Italy 5 years earlier. I watched them having sex on our living room couch, in our bed, on the kitchen counter where I prepared our meals. But the most damning footage was from 3 days earlier, the day after Marcus had sent me that email. The woman had arrived with suitcases, multiple suitcases. Marcus had helped her carry them inside, and they had spent the afternoon moving her belongings into our bedroom, our closets, our home. She wasn't just visiting anymore. She was moving in. Marcus had ended our marriage by email and moved his girlfriend into our house before I even had a chance to respond to his message. I saved all of this footage to multiple secure drives. I documented the timestamps, created a detailed log of every visit, every overnight stay, every indication that this woman had been living in our marital home without my knowledge or consent. Then I started tracing their digital relationship. Marcus had been careless. He had used our shared laptop for some of his communications, and he had never learned to properly delete his browsing history or clear his cache. Within an hour, I had recovered months of messages between Marcus and a woman named Brittany Collins. The messages painted a picture of a relationship that had been going on for over 6 months. Marcus had met Brittany at a work conference, ironically, a conference that I had encouraged him to attend for his professional development. She was a marketing coordinator at a tech startup, 15 years younger than me, with an Instagram account full of gym selfies and inspirational quotes about living your best life. The messages showed Marcus complaining about our marriage in ways that were both hurtful and completely untrue. He had told Brittany that I was cold and career-obsessed, that I never wanted to do anything fun, that I was more like a roommate than a wife. He had told her that we hadn't been intimate in years, which was a lie. He had told her that I was controlling and manipulative, which was also a lie. He had painted me as a shrew who was preventing him from being happy, while portraying himself as a victim trapped in a loveless marriage. But what made me truly angry was how he had talked about my work. Marcus had told Brittany that my job was boring and antisocial, that I was obsessed with other people's business, that I spent too much time playing detective instead of being a wife. My work, which had supported our lifestyle and paid for our house and our vacations and our comfortable life, was being described as a character flaw. My expertise, which Marcus had always claimed to be proud of, was being mocked to impress a woman who probably couldn't spell forensics. The messages also revealed the timeline of their physical relationship. They had been sleeping together for months, often in our house while I was traveling for work. Marcus had been giving Brittany my schedule, telling her exactly when I would be out of town so they could have uninterrupted time together. He had been using my travel, my career commitments, my professional obligations as opportunities to betray me in our own home. But the most telling messages were the ones from the past month, where Marcus and Brittany had been discussing their future and how to handle the Rachel situation. They had been planning this for weeks, discussing the best way to get me out of the house so Brittany could move in, debating whether to give me any advance notice or just present me with a fait accompli. They had decided on the email approach because, as Marcus put it, Rachel is too logical to make a scene if I give her clear instructions about how to handle this. Too logical to make a scene. Marcus had bet on my professionalism, my emotional control, my tendency to handle crises with calm analysis rather than dramatic confrontation. He had assumed that I would accept his decision with dignity and cooperate with his plan to transition smoothly from our marriage to his new relationship. He was right that I wouldn't make a scene, but he was wrong about what my logical approach would actually look like. I spent the remaining 3 days of my conference documenting everything. I recovered deleted emails, traced financial transactions, captured screenshots, and built a comprehensive timeline of Marcus's affair and his systematic plan to end our marriage in the most advantageous way possible for him. I also used that time to consult with the best divorce attorney in our city. Jennifer Parks specialized in high-asset divorces involving digital evidence, and she was known for her aggressive approach to protecting her clients' interests. Rachel, she said during our video call, your husband has made several critical errors. First, he's committed adultery in your marital home. which gives you grounds for fault-based divorce in our state. Second, he's moved his girlfriend into your shared property without your consent, which is essentially theft of marital assets. Third, he's hidden financial transactions and attempted to unilaterally end the marriage without proper legal procedure. What does that mean for me? It means you're going to keep the house, the majority of your shared assets, and probably get spousal support. It also means that his girlfriend is about to have a very unpleasant conversation with law enforcement about unlawful occupation of someone else's property. I flew home on Friday afternoon, 3 days ahead of my original schedule. I didn't tell Marcus I was coming back early. I wanted to see exactly what I would find when I arrived. I pulled into our driveway at 6:30 p.m. to find a red BMW convertible parked in my spot in the garage. Our garage, which had always been mine because Marcus preferred to park in the driveway. I sat in my rental car for a moment, looking at our house, the house Marcus and I had bought together 8 years earlier when we thought we were building a future together. Lights were on throughout the house. I could see figures moving around inside, see the warm glow of our living room lamps. It looked like home, but it wasn't my home anymore apparently. I walked up to our front door and used my key. The lock had been changed. I stood on our front porch, staring at the door that no longer recognized my key, and I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. This wasn't a mistake or a temporary breakdown or a crisis we could work through. This was a planned, deliberate, methodical destruction of our marriage, carried out while I was away and unable to protect myself. Marcus had locked me out of my own house. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached, and then the door opened to reveal a young woman with long blonde hair and carefully applied makeup. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top, casual clothes that suggested she was comfortable here, that this was her space now. "Can I help you?" she asked, as if I were a stranger at her door. "I'm Rachel," I said. "This is my house." Her expression shifted from polite confusion to something that looked like panic. "Oh," she said. "You're early." "I'm early. Marcus said you wouldn't be back until Sunday." I stared at this woman, this stranger who was answering my door and telling me when I was expected to return to my own home. "Where is Marcus?" I asked. "He's in the shower." "Look, maybe you should come back later, when we've had a chance to. This is my house," I said again. "I'm not coming back later." I heard footsteps on the stairs behind her, and Marcus appeared, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. "Rachel," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "You're back early." "I'm back early," I agreed. "To my house, where my husband and his girlfriend are apparently living together." "Look, I know this is awkward, I said. "Marcus, you ended our 17-year marriage by email and moved another woman into our house while I was out of town. Awkward doesn't begin to cover this." Brittany stepped closer to Marcus, a gesture that was clearly meant to show possession, to demonstrate that they were a united front against me. "Rachel, I understand that you're upset," she said, "but Marcus has been unhappy for a long time. He deserves to be with someone who appreciates him." I looked at this woman, this stranger who was explaining to me why my marriage had failed while standing in my foyer, and I felt something crystallize inside me. Not anger exactly, though there was anger. Not hurt, though there was hurt. Something colder and more focused than either of those emotions. I felt the satisfaction of a forensic analyst who had just identified the critical evidence that would break a case wide open. "Brittany," I said, "how long have you been living in my house?" "Well, I wouldn't say living here exactly. How long?" "A few days," Marcus said quickly. "Since I sent you the email, I thought it would be easier if we were already settled when you got back." "Settled," I repeated. "In my house, with my belongings, using my furniture and my dishes and wearing what appears to be my jewelry." I could see my grandmother's pearl necklace around Brittany's neck, the necklace Marcus had given me for our 10th anniversary because he knew how much it meant to me. "Brittany," I said, "I want you to understand something. You're not just dating a married man whose wife doesn't know about you. You're living in a house that belongs to someone else, wearing jewelry that was stolen from someone else, sleeping in a bed that you have no legal right to occupy." "That's not how Marcus explained it," Brittany said, her voice smaller now. "I'm sure it's not. Marcus has been telling you a lot of things that aren't true. But here's what is true. I own half of this house. I pay for half of this mortgage. I have every legal right to be here. And you have absolutely none. I pulled out my phone and opened the app for our security system. Marcus, did you really think I wouldn't check the security footage? Did you really think I wouldn't notice that you changed my account settings? Did you honestly believe that someone who makes a living finding digital evidence wouldn't discover that you've been bringing Brittany here for months? Marcus's face went pale. You've been recording us? I've been recording everyone who enters my house without my permission, which, it turns out, includes both of you for the past 4 months. I swiped through the footage on my phone, showing them timestamps of their visits, their overnight stays, their obvious comfort in my home. This is invasion of privacy, Brittany said. This is my house, I replied. And you're trespassing. I looked at Marcus, this man I had loved and trusted and built a life with for 17 years. And I realized that I was looking at a stranger. The Marcus I had married would never have done this. The Marcus I had married would never have treated anyone with this level of calculated cruelty. But maybe that Marcus had never really existed. Maybe I had been married to a performance, a carefully constructed version of a person who was capable of love and loyalty and basic decency. Maybe the man standing in my foyer, looking like a teenager who had been caught sneaking out, was who Marcus had always been underneath the performance. I want both of you out of my house, I said. Tonight. Rachel, be reasonable, Marcus said. We can work out some kind of arrangement. You don't need to make this adversarial. Adversarial, I said. Marcus, you moved your girlfriend into our house and changed the locks to keep me out. You ended our marriage by email and used my travel schedule to execute your plan without giving me any opportunity to respond. I'd say you already made this adversarial. I was trying to make this as painless as possible. For who? Because this has been pretty fucking painful for me. I rarely swore, and the words seemed to hang in the air between us like a slap. You don't understand, Brittany said. Marcus has been so unhappy. You work all the time. You're never here. You don't appreciate what you have. I stared at this woman, this child who was lecturing me about my own marriage, and I realized that she genuinely believed what she was saying. Marcus had convinced her that I was the villain in this story, that she was rescuing him from a cold, neglectful wife. Brittany, I said, I travel for work about 6 days a month. Marcus travels more than I do. I work from home most of the time, and I've never missed a family event or anniversary or important occasion for work. Marcus is the one who forgot our anniversary last year because he was too busy with his golf tournament. That's not what he told me. I'm sure it's not. Marcus has been telling you a lot of convenient lies to justify what you're doing. But you know what? I don't actually care what you believe about me. I care that you're in my house without my permission, and I want you out. I pulled out my phone again and called Jennifer Park, my attorney. Jennifer, it's Rachel. I'm at my house, and my husband and his girlfriend are here. They've changed the locks and moved her belongings in. What do I do? Are you safe? Do you need me to call the police? I'm safe. But I want them out of my house tonight. Put me on speaker. I held out my phone so Marcus and Brittany could hear. This is Jennifer Park, Rachel's attorney. I need you both to understand that you are currently unlawfully occupying Rachel's property. Marcus, you do not have the right to change the locks on your marital home without your wife's consent. Brittany, you have no legal right to be in this house at all. Now wait a minute, Marcus said. This is my house too. Yes, it is. Which means you can't exclude your wife from it. You also can't move another woman into it without your wife's consent. You've violated several laws tonight, and if you don't rectify this immediately, you're going to face criminal charges as well as civil penalties. Brittany looked genuinely scared now. I didn't know this was illegal. Ignorance isn't a defense, Jennifer said. You're unlawfully occupying someone else's home. I suggest you gather your belongings and leave immediately. Where are we supposed to go? Brittany asked. That's not Rachel's problem, Jennifer replied. You should have thought about that before you moved into a house that doesn't belong to you. I hung up and looked at Marcus and Brittany, who were staring at me with expressions that had shifted from confident to panicked. You have 2 hours to get Brittany's belongings out of my house, I said. After that, I'm calling the police and reporting a break-in. Rachel, this is insane. You can't just kick me out of my own house. I'm not kicking you out, Marcus. You told me by email that you had already left. You told me you had taken your things, so take your things and go. But where am I supposed to live? That's not my problem anymore. You made a choice to end our marriage and start a new life. Congratulations. Go live your new life. Over the next 2 hours, I sat in my car in the driveway and watched Marcus and Brittany carry suitcases and boxes out of my house. I documented everything with photos and video, creating a record of them removing belongings from my property. Some of the things they were taking belonged to me, and I made note of those items for the divorce proceedings. My grandmother's pearl necklace, my grandmother's silver tea set, several pieces of art that we had bought together but that Marcus was apparently claiming as his. But I didn't try to stop them. I wanted them gone more than I wanted to fight over material possessions. When they were finished, Marcus walked over to my car. Rachel, we need to talk about how we're going to handle this. We're going to handle this through lawyers, I said. You forfeited your right to direct communication when you ended our marriage by email. I was trying to make this easier for both of us. You were trying to make this easier for you. There's a difference. Marcus looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to calculate his next move, trying to figure out how to regain control of a situation that had slipped away from him. Rachel, you know I loved you. We just weren't right for each other anymore. If you loved me, Marcus, you wouldn't have humiliated me like this. If you loved me, you would have had the courage to talk to me about your unhappiness instead of sneaking around for months and then ambushing me with an email. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to deal with the consequences of hurting me. There's a difference. I rolled up my window and drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the driveway of the house we had shared for 8 years, the house that was no longer his home. Over the next few weeks, I learned things about my marriage that reframed 17 years of shared history. The private investigator that Jennifer recommended found evidence of financial infidelity going back much further than I had realized. Marcus had been hiding money, making unauthorized purchases, and using our joint credit for personal expenses that benefited only him. He had also been having emotional affairs, if not physical ones, for years. The relationship with Brittany was just the latest in a series of inappropriate connections with younger women who saw him as successful and attractive and unavailable. Most damaging of all was the evidence of how long he had been planning his exit. Marcus had been systematically moving assets, reducing his contributions to our joint accounts, and building a financial foundation for his post-marriage life for over a year. The divorce he had sprung on me with that email had been in the works for months. He had consulted with attorneys, researched his options, and planned his strategy while pretending to be a committed husband. He had been living a double life with the same attention to detail that I brought to my forensic work, except that he wasn't nearly as good at hiding evidence as he thought he was. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Marcus's behavior had been so egregious, so clearly documented, that there was little room for negotiation. He had committed adultery in our marital home, unlawfully excluded me from our shared property, and attempted to steal marital assets. The settlement left me with the house, the majority of our shared investments, and spousal support that reflected both Marcus's earning capacity and his misconduct. Marcus got his freedom and the financial consequences that came with it. He also got to learn what Brittany was really like when the excitement of being the other woman wore off and she was faced with the reality of being with a man who had lost most of his assets in a divorce. According to mutual friends, their relationship lasted about 3 months after the divorce was finalized. Brittany had apparently expected to move into a comfortable life as the wife of a successful man, not to start over in a small apartment with someone who was paying substantial spousal support to his ex-wife. She moved on to someone else, someone without the complications and baggage that came with Marcus's choices. Marcus tried to rebuild his professional reputation after word of his behavior spread through our industry. But it's hard to recover from being known as the man who ended his marriage by email while his wife was traveling for work, who moved his girlfriend into the marital home before his wife even knew the marriage was over. The last I heard, he was working for a smaller company at a lower salary, still paying spousal support, still trying to convince himself that his choices had been justified. As for me, I'm thriving. I bought Marcus out of his share of the house and redecorated it completely to suit my own taste. I've been promoted twice since the divorce, and my expertise in digital forensics is more in demand than ever. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself, of protecting my interests, of refusing to be victimized even by someone I trusted completely. I've learned that love without honesty is just manipulation, that commitment without communication is just convenience, and that sometimes the most self-respecting thing you can do is refuse to tolerate the intolerable. But here's what I want to ask you. Put yourself in my shoes for a moment. You're working out of town, doing your job, contributing to your shared life, and you get an email telling you that your marriage is over and your spouse has already moved someone else into your house. They've planned this for months, executed it while you were away and vulnerable, and they're confident that you'll just accept it because they've given you clear instructions about how to handle it. What would you have done in my place? Would you have tried to work it out, begged Marcus to give our marriage another chance, accepted his explanation that we just weren't right for each other anymore? Some people have told me I was too harsh, that I should have been more understanding of his needs and his unhappiness. But here's what I keep coming back to. He made his choice. He chose to betray me systematically and methodically. He chose to end our marriage in the most cowardly and cruel way possible. He chose to bet on my compliance and my willingness to accept whatever he decided was best. And I chose to show him exactly what happens when you underestimate someone who makes a living uncovering the truth. Do you think that was the right choice? Do you think there's ever a justification for what Marcus did? I'm genuinely curious, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You know what really gets to me? It's not just that Marcus betrayed me. It's that he was so confident I would handle it logically, that I would accept his decision with professional dignity and cooperate with his plan. He built his entire strategy around the assumption that I would be too civilized, too controlled, too concerned with appearances to fight back effectively. He thought my professionalism was weakness. He thought my emotional intelligence was naivety. He thought my tendency to solve problems systematically meant I would solve his problem for him. He was wrong. My professionalism meant I knew exactly how to build an airtight case against him. My emotional intelligence meant I understood exactly how much damage his choices would cause him. My systematic approach meant I had documented everything he thought he had hidden. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Marcus had just been honest with me about his unhappiness. If he had come to me and said he wanted a divorce, if he had been willing to work through the logistics together like adults, would I have been hurt? Absolutely. Would I have fought for our marriage? Probably. But would I have respected him more for his honesty? Definitely. Instead, he chose the path of maximum cruelty and minimum courage, and he got exactly what he deserved. If this story resonates with you, if it makes you think about your own relationships or your own capacity to protect yourself when someone you trust betrays that trust, then maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. Maybe we all need to be reminded that we don't have to accept betrayal gracefully, that we don't owe anyone our dignity in exchange for their convenience. What would you have done in my place? How would you have handled discovering that your partner had been planning your replacement while pretending to love you? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious about how other people would navigate this kind of systematic betrayal. Share this if it moved you. And remember that your own story of self-respect and refusing to be diminished is still being written. You have more power than you know, and you deserve honesty from the people who claim to love you.